What is going on YouTube? Chrono here and welcome back to the channel. So, I have an interesting proposition for you. What if I told you there was another way to farm PSE bursts? Yep, talk about the Nuisance plant and a few things we've noticed that we didn't realize beforehand that seems a bit different in this new combat zone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So in the background, you're going to see footage of us just farming the Nuisance plant, and specifically not farming it in a way that you probably have noticed people usually do for PSE bursts. I'm going to give a quick rundown of how this works out, but there are videos talking about it a bit more. I'll leave a link in the video description to Skull's video talking about PSE bursts and how that actually worked before this came out. But essentially what you'd be looking to do is get a max PSE meter. Killing enemies has a random chance to increase or decrease the PSE meter. Once it reaches 2 stacks, it will never decrease, it will only ever increase. So it'll go up to 3, it can come back down to 2, so on and so forth. And completing trials guarantees an increase of the PSE meter at least by 1. There are other trials that affect it differently. So, what's different now? Well, instead of just farming enemies, which we did previously, to then what we call feed the PSE meter until it reached about 4 and then completing a trial, essentially ignoring it until that popped up, what we've noticed is trials spawn really fast in the Nuisance plant. It almost seems like they spawn instantaneously. Essentially killing enemies during the trial seems to affect the next trial spawning. So while you're killing either a boss enemy or a bunch of smaller enemies, it seems like the next trial tends to pop up really quickly. If it's just a boss and you guys are just focused on the boss itself, then sometimes that can mean there's a little bit of downtime between trials. But while we're farming the Nuisance plant, I noticed that trials were popping back to back to back. Basically, we were farming in our old way of trying to feed the meter and then getting scammed by the trial. If the meter would go down, we noticed the next trial would pop instantaneously. And part of what makes the Nuisance plant such a place or such a lucrative farm is because of a specific camo that's there. And it drops off of one specific boss. It drops off of the new Quartz dragon boss. I know that's not his name, but that's what I'm going to call him because that's what I know him as. But the Dragon Slayer drops off of the new Quartz dragon boss that's in that area, and he only spawns in 1 of 2 different ways. Either from a trial or at the end of a PSE burst. And now, trials are pretty much a dime a dozen. They're all over the place. They're popping up left and right, and they can pop up in any form of the room that you're in, meaning that you had a chance to get that Quartz dragon anywhere. On top of that, we also noticed that Captans spawn there pretty regularly. Now, if you ask me, I won't say regularly because I farmed there for about 11 hours and didn't see a single Captan, but a lot of my friends, even Skulls, also saw this stuff pop up all the time for them. They saw tons of Captans. So, farming more trials might be the way to go. And what we noticed when we were trying to farm these trials is we got PSE bursts about the same. Because random enemies can increase or decrease your PSE meter, it was all RNG. And pushing the PSE meter up to 4 and then doing a trial does not guarantee getting a PSE burst. It only guarantees getting PSE burst if the trial pops, and nothing affects the PSE meter. But random enemies killed in between, and sometimes even the enemy that you kill to finish the trial affects the PSE meter by dropping it down a bar, in some rare cases, meaning you wouldn't get the trial anyway. So we've had a lot of situations where we fed the meter properly, got it up to 4 bars. Right before we kill the boss, someone accidentally hits something on the side, it drops down by 1 bar, the boss dies, and then bam, we're still at 4. And we got completely scammed out of our PSE burst. Or in some cases, it drops down even when you kill the enemy, and then we go try to feed the meter again, and it drops down to like 2. Now we're super far behind and everyone feels completely scammed. And this is something that not everyone in the area was always privy to. Sometimes players didn't know about how this worked, they haven't seen videos, and some people, they just play for fun and they don't pay attention to these sort of things, so they may not be aware of the strats. A trial is a very easy thing to follow. Something pops up on your on your screen. Usually an operator will tell you about it. They'll tell you, hey, this is something that's going on, go fight this or go deal with that, so on and so forth. So it makes a lot of sense to go after the trials. So again, we thought, why not just farm the trials? And that's what we did. We farmed just trials for about 2 or 3 hours. And we noticed PSEs were popping pretty much exact same way. And we were getting more Quartz Dragon boss fights because he was a part of the trials, and we had a better chance of getting Captans. I guess this is a 5-minute video to tell you guys, hey, you can just farm trials in the new zone. it seems like it's working perfectly fine. And the best part about it is if you're farming in a random group where people don't know to feed the meter or don't understand to feed the meter, now you can just farm trials consistently with them, and you don't have to worry about, farming and not getting as much done. A lot of times people have these horror stories of being in combat zones or not wanting to go to a combat zone with random people because people get super upset or they freak out on people about not feeding the meter properly. And the fact that you can do combat zones in this sort of way just means that it's another way you can farm and deal with less stress of having to have people freak out over how the farming is happening. Basically, there's more than one way to do this now. And I would adapt to the room that you're in. If people are feeding the meter, hey, just feed the meter if you understand the process. If people aren't feeding the meter and people aren't paying attention, just go and kill trials as quickly as you possibly can. You have a better chance of getting more important things anyway, and at the end of the day, it's still just a combat zone. It just happens to be a combat zone you can get, gunblaze in and the new upgrade materials, but it is still just a combat zone. And being just a combat zone, the strats don't need to be that complicated. Anyway, guys, I just want to talk to you guys about that process and let you know there is a new way of doing this. This probably also works in older combat zones, but it's probably not as important. And I do like the new combat zone, but at the end of the day, it's still a combat zone. And there are different types of quests that I prefer personally, and this is not one of them. It's fun, it's not bad, but it's still what it is. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys have tried this out yourselves, what you have learned from it, what you've noticed, and anything I might have missed. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe when you keep up with more, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone. Peace out.